Hey guys, John and Jamie from True Crimecast here. If you're anything like us, you've probably had those conversations where you're like, man, someone should be recording this.
Right? And now you can do that with Zen AI, the home of vibecasting. A vibecast is all about putting the conversation first and turning it into something worth sharing.
Whether you're reacting live to a game or TV show, Zen AI makes it incredibly easy to create your own broadcast.
And you don't need a fancy setup either. Your phone is your studio. Just hit record, start talking. You can get professional level sound right from your phone.
Then Zen AI's AI producer takes over from there. It handles the cleanup, helps with editing, and even creates share-ready clips. And the cool part is you can make changes simply by chatting with it in plain English.
Zen AI is currently an invite-only beta, so join the wait list today.
Head to zen.ai to sign up.
That's zen.ai. Start vibecasting this summer. Hey, True Crimecast fans, Jamie and John here. For the next couple of weeks, we're going to give you a special presentation of our show, Paradigm.
Paradigm is an 8-episode series where we take a deep dive into one case. If you've been around for a while, you'll know that that is very different, as we normally will do an episode per case, but not this one.
We're currently working on season 2 of Paradigm, so we thought it'd be a great idea to bring season 1 back up. So on the True Crimecast feed over the next couple of weeks, you're going to get the entire first season of Paradigm. Now, that whole season is available over on the Paradigm feed. So you can go over there and subscribe and listen to it all now, or wait till it comes out here.
If you do go over there, we would encourage you to go ahead and hit subscribe so that when our new season comes out, you'll be immediately notified.
We're in the depth of that investigation, and it's going to be, we think, a really great story being told with hopefully some good outcomes. So make sure you subscribe over there. The guys will be back in a couple weeks for your regularly scheduled programming of True Crimecast.
Guys, we love you, and we'll see you next crime.
Once upon a time in the United States, advocacy had a negative connotation. In the year 2023, it's a more common term and a more common practice in all areas of our lives. The late Congressman John Lewis once said, "When you see something that is not right, not fair, not just, you have to speak up. You have to say something. You have to do something." And that's what many advocates do on behalf of individuals who are the victims of crimes and also those seeking judicial relief for a variety of reasons.
Douglas Kavanaugh is an advocate for many of the Pikeville Six that are seeking post-conviction relief, specifically Dean Mullins, Karen Howell, and Crystal Sturgill. In response to the murders being a satanic ritual, he wanted to speak on behalf of those that he is advocating for, and we gave him that opportunity. This is Paradigm.
All right, we are here with Douglas with Justice for Karen Howell, who is graciously giving us his time to talk about the details of the case that a lot of people don't hear. So, first of all, Doug, welcome to the show. We appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good to be here.
I guess to begin, if you could just tell us about your relationship to Karen, the others involved in the case, and then how you got involved with this cause.
Well, it started in the summer of 2005. I was watching A&E. I'm sure you remember the City Confidential crime series back then. And they had one based on this crime, the Lilywood murders. It was called Kentucky Gothic. So I was on a break from work, so I watched it. And I worked with troubled teens for many years. So I knew this was about 90s teenagers involved in a murder. Oh, okay, well, that's interesting to me. So I was watching it, and it just reeked of tabloid journalism. I mean, it was like, 6 satanic hillbilly teens murder Jehovah family in an orgy of violence and bloodshed. I mean, all it was missing was the Vincent Price evil laugh track. It was just so cheesy. I'm like, people actually believe this? No, that's not. I recognize these people. I watched the interviews. I'm like, no, I recognize these people. These are very typical troubled teens from the 90s. I worked with millions of Natasha Cornettes and Karen Howells and Jason Bryant. There was a sociopath there who took them all down. Now let's watch the interviews and see who it was. And as soon as they showed Bryant talking, I went, there it is. The dead eyes, the dead voice, no emotion, nothing. There he is. That's the one that did it, and that's the one that took him down. And the more studying and research I did, the more that played out. You know, he was the only one that was on probation. He was the only one with a history of real violence. Yeah, it just made sense. So I started writing to Crystal Sturgill first. And by the way, I also run a page called Justice for Crystal Sturgill. It's fairly new. And Dean Mullins and Karen. And all three of them eventually responded. And I've developed relationships with them, and they've given me their stories, and they're pretty consistent. And yeah, so here we are all these years later.
Great. I should say before we move on, if you haven't listened to our previous episode, please go and download that. You'll be a lot more informed and prepared to hear this interview.
So, Douglas, you mentioned the hotel situation that we discussed last week, and you said that
Correct.
There wasn't a 666 burned in the ground or anything like that. Do you know from their reports what happened that night at the hotel?
We've got, yeah, it was just really a typical party, a teenage party in Appalachia. You know, a bunch of bored teenagers acquire a bunch of beer, get a hotel room, get drunk, and get silly. You know, we all did some version of that when we were teenagers. This was a little different because, again, you're dealing with troubled teens. So, of course, you know, Natasha and Karen being cutters, as we call them in the psych field, they were cutting on themselves and having fun, whatever. Dean Mullins was watching TV. Jason and Joe were wrestling at one point. At one point, Crystal even left. I mean, it kind of got boring for her. She just left with a friend and came back later on. It really wasn't this seance or anything like that. I mean, there were people other than the six that were there. Several other people showed up and came and went. It was just a regular, unexciting, typical bored teenager night in Appalachia, to be honest with you. Jason was fairly new to the group, so, and most of them didn't really like him. They didn't want him there. As a matter of fact, Natasha was really the only one that wanted him there. And, you know, because she kind of tended to pick up the lost sheep, so to speak. And he really started acting out. He started trashing the hotel room at one point. He trashed other hotel rooms. He managed to sneak in. He snuck into a van in the parking lot and stole a big flashlight, some beer, some chewing tobacco. So the party ended in the early hours of the morning. They headed to Walmart after that, and then headed for Natasha's home where they all crashed. So it was, go ahead.
There's a lot out there about Jason and how he got connected to the group. And I think you said we were in error in some of the things that we had said about him being homeless and that kind of thing. So how did he get connected with the other teenagers involved in this?
Well, you know, like with any teenage era, you look for your tribe, so to speak. So Natasha and somebody else who wasn't part of the six, I forget the girl's name, and probably better that I do. I don't want to drag any other names into this. Natasha and some other girl in March, the previous month, that's when they called it, in March saw him on a street corner in Pikeville. I don't know if you've ever been to Pikeville. It's a very small town.
I have, actually.
Oh, okay, there you go. Well, you know, you see some gothy-looking kid in the 90s in Pikeville and standing on the street corner. So Natasha, of course, and her friend pulled over, picked him up, started talking to him, and Natasha befriended him. Karen and the rest didn't even meet him until a few days before all this went down. So, you know, she didn't even know him. Neither did Crystal. Crystal just thought he was just some mouthy punk. She thought he was just a harmless, mouthy blowhard until, of course, he started blowing people away. But, yeah, so that's how they met.
One more follow-up question before we move on. You had mentioned that you are an advocate for Crystal, Dean, and Karen. May I ask why Natasha and Joseph hadn't made the cut on getting that type of support at this point?
From everything I've read, Joe Reisner and studied, Joe Reisner ran over the bodies on purpose.
Okay.
I don't think he's a murderer. I think he thought that they were already dead, and okay, we're all in this together, so hey, you know, let's go all the way with it. I think he was caught up in a moment. And, but, you know, I'm not going to make excuses for him, and that's not for me to decide. I'll let the family decide what to do with him. I can't support him because of that. I can't say, look at the Lillies and say, yeah, I'm sorry, you know, he ran over him on purpose, but he should be free. I just can't. And as far as Natasha Cornett, of course, again, also, I don't believe she's a murderer, but I do believe she's a troublemaker. She's gotten in trouble in prison a few times. She was, you know, she's just one of those people. It's what we call a borderline personality disorder in the psych field, where peace in a person's life or tranquility is a period of unrest between two dramas, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So
I think that's a pretty fair analysis for both of those.
Yeah, it's a period of unrest, and she's still kind of a drama person. But if there's any piece, she's got to create drama. So if she got out, I don't think she would get involved in murder or anything major like that. But I could see her getting involved in something stupid and, having problems with society. And I can't, even though I don't think she's a murderer, I don't think she should be in jail for life or in prison for life. I can't sign my name under her saying, yes, this person's safe to go back into society, because I don't know what she'll do. I don't think it'll be murder or anything, but maybe she will do something that somebody will get hurt. But I don't think she has a murderous personality, but I cannot support her. And Bryant, you already know why I don't support him.
Right.
So our next question is, the tabloids does make this a Satanistic ritual type killing. I mean, was anybody in the group involved in satanic practices that you're aware of?
Stuff that falls under the category of satanic practices. I mean, I don't believe they sat there in a circle going, "Hail Satan," or "No, Satan, we worship you," or stuff like that. No, nothing like that. Occulty stuff, yes, absolutely. Occult stuff, magic, all those little fun, forbidden things that teenagers aren't supposed to dabble in. I mean, I dabbled in it when I was a teenager. I played with a Ouija board. I played light as a feather, stiff as a board. Why? Because you're not supposed to do it. So I did it. That was satanic posturing. You got to understand, was very, very, very trendy. That and bisexuality. Those are the two biggest trends of 90s youth that I recall. Suddenly every kid was bisexual. Just like how nowadays every kid's transgender. That's the new trend. Hey, I'm transgender. I'm really a woman. Or I'm really a man. That's the new trend of this generation. Well, that previous generation in the 90s, it was all bisexuality. Oh, and I'm into Satanism and the occult and Wicca and this and that. I mean, everybody this is their identity. I can literally, as I'm questioning these teenagers at my work, I can literally mouth the words before they even say them or as they're saying them. I'm a bisexual and this and that. So, yeah, they dabbled in it. It wasn't an obsession. It wasn't something they did every night. It was just something to rebel with, Here's what you do when you're a rebellious teenager in the 90s. Yeah, I'm into Satanism. I'm evil. I'm the devil's daughter. Natasha called herself Satan because that's Natasha spelled backwards. It was very common. Not shocking at all. I saw it all the time.
Okay, we'll get more into how you feel that played into the legal proceedings later. But before we get into that, we spent a lot of time last week going through the series of events that's really out there in the public, what the prosecutor went through at trial, what's been in the media. So from the time that the 6 teenagers ran into the lids at the rest stop until they got from Mexico, what do you feel, as we discussed earlier, is the truth behind what actually happened between those 2 points in time?
Between the murders in Mexico?
Even leading up to the murders. From the time they got in the car and set off on their trip.
Oh, okay. So what you mean from when they left Pikeville?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. They Jason and Karen's name. I don't know how Karen's name got attached to it. Nobody knows. But the next morning, or the morning after that, because they didn't leave for 2 days. I believe it was the next morning. Jason was calling home to get a ride home, and he hung up the phone and said, "They're looking for me and Karen about the Kali Motel, thrashing the Kali Motel." Now, nobody knew how they got Karen's name, but Jason was just all over the place. So anyway, that's when they hatched the plan to get the heck out of there, So they went and got guns and cash. And here's one of the main myths, that they stole guns and stole cash. Okay, now that the DA put forth that myth because it made them look like, it fed into his natural born killers theory. It wasn't true. That was Karen Howell's money, all $500 of it. She had been babysitting, and she hadn't even been seeing Natasha Cornett much in the months leading up to this. She'd been busy babysitting like every day, her nephews and nieces. So she would save $500. She wanted to get a car. So that was her. And again, the guns, one of them was given to them by a friend. The other one was taken from Karen's house. I knew her father, Joe Howell. If you asked him, he would have told you, no, that's not stolen. Karen's taking my gun, then she's borrowing it. And again, they made such a big deal about, well, why'd they have guns? I mean, Appalachian kids or Appalachian people taking guns on a road trip is like questioning that is like questioning why an inner city kid would take rap music with him. I mean, that's part of the culture. You know, the grandmothers have guns there. Guns are everyday things. Natasha had been raped in New Orleans. That's getting back to the point. They were going to New Orleans because Natasha knew the lay of the city. She'd been there before, but she'd been raped there before. So they brought guns. This isn't going to happen again. The guns were for self-defense. So they got guns, they got cash, and they took off. They're in a 1980 Chevy Citation. It's not going to make the trip. It's a piece of junk. It's Joe Reisner's mom's car, I believe. And so Joe, Jason, I forget who, it was just general talk about we got to get another car. So they tried to hotwire 2 cars before they even hit the Baileyton rest stop. Jason, of course, again, you know, Crystal saying this little blowhard, said he knew how to hotwire a car. Well, they stopped at 2 different cars, and he didn't know what the hell he was doing. They're just like, would you get in the car? Let's go. So they stopped at Baileyton because, and I mean, and Natasha, everyone says this, well, Karen had to pee. It was Karen's bladder was the whole reason they stopped at the Baileyton rest stop. No other reason. Karen had to pee. Okay. So they stopped at the Baileyton rest stop. Crystal and Dean stay in the car. Natasha and Karen go to the bathroom. Joe and Jason are doing whatever. And that's when Vidar Lillywood approached and started proselytizing, as Jehovah's Witnesses do. He sees these goth-looking kids. You know, Natasha and Karen come out and kind of just, you know, whatever. But Joe, who was actually very sociable, a very affable guy from what everyone has told me, a very affable guy, very friendly, started talking to Vidar and Delphina and about the religion and everything like that, their faith. And eventually it moved up to this picnic table. And Dean and what's her name? Dean and Crystal stayed in the car. Joe comes back later on and says, you know, hang here, something's going to go down. Okay, whatever. He goes back up. Dean and Crystal don't have no idea what's going on. They come back down a few minutes later and just say, hey, follow us. They get in the van, they go. Now, some people say they brought him at gunpoint. That's not true. There were witnesses there at the Baileyton rest stop. Nobody said that they saw them take them away at gunpoint. Somebody would have called 911 immediately. All the witnesses say that they just saw him go into the van. But the story is what happened up there at the picnic table is Joe Reisner took out the gun, put it on the table, and said, sorry to do you this way, but we need your van. So anyway, yeah, that of course made everybody very upset. You know, at one point I think it was Karen just said, can't we just go? Let's just go. No, we're not leaving. We got to do this, whatever. So they take off. Dean and Crystal follow them in the Citation. A couple miles up the road is the Payne Hollow exit. They go, they take it, they stop, order them out. Yeah, and then Jason just sort of slowly starts taking over and saying, no, they'll identify me. I'm on probation. I'm not going back to prison or, juvie or whatever. Natasha said she stood in front of him, said, promise me you won't hurt the kids. He said, no, screw it. I'm going to kill him. No, promise me you won't hurt the kids. Get the F out of the way, this and that. And finally, she extracted a promise that, fine, I won't hurt the kids. And she stepped away, walked to the van where Karen was, and that's when Jason started blasting. You guys still with me?
Yeah, we're here. I realize it's a long story, and those are a lot of the details where it's murky. And obviously, we mentioned we got our information from a lot of the papers, from a lot of the court documents. Where have you gathered the information that you're sharing about this entire case, I guess?
Court documents, interviews, personal interviews, interviews on the record plus personally talking to them. But yeah, it's in the record.
Okay.
It's all there just for the interviews. I mean, their dialogue, it's all there. Yeah. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask them at this point because like you said, it is a long story. And if suddenly a question comes up, feel free to interrupt me.
No, it's fine. I really do want to fast forward to when they were arrested because there were a lot of, I guess, rumors or you say myths about what they had on them. It was said that they were keeping trophies from the Lillywood family and that they had gotten into Mexico but were coming back. What happened at the arrest and what did they have with them?
Well, again, this is a little gem that the DA cooked up that these were trophies. Last I checked, that's what serial killers do. And they take trophies, they take it off the bodies. There was nothing taken off the bodies at all. These were items that were just on the ground in the van. Crystal had a set of car keys that she had that, and the reason she had it, I don't remember if I pointed this out to you guys. She basically said that the van had a messed up battery. Every time it was turned off, we had to use jumper cables to get it going again, something that was difficult to do. If one needed to use the bathroom, then all 6 of us had to go in. Joe told me to carry the extra set of keys so we could leave the van running and still lock the doors or in case we needed them. She said to me, I had forgotten they were in my pocket when the Border Patrol officers were searching me. She said it seemed inconsequential at the time. But to Berkeley Bell, the DA, this was a trophy. Karen had a Hello Kitty locket on her. She told me personally, she said, I found it on the floor. She says, my heart was broken. I saw this little girl get murdered. I saw Jason Bryant pop this little girl in the head with a pistol. Yes, I took the Hello Kitty locket and I kept it in my pocket. She said, I wanted to remember that little girl, not for some evil satanic reason. I mean, that's just ridiculous. There's nothing that supports such a absurd claim. And Natasha Cornett had a belt buckle. It didn't come off of Vidar's body. At least I've never heard that it has. Again, found on the floor of the van. I've never spoken to her. I don't know why she had it, so I can't say. But when you're sitting in a van for 2 days, you got a lot of time to just sort of twiddle your thumbs and, idly pick up objects. I don't know why she had that. But Karen and Crystal are very clear as to why they had what they had. The others, to the best of my knowledge, didn't have anything.
Do you know if there was any point during the trip from Tennessee to Mexico where they did try to get away from Jason? Because it's my understanding that they were afraid of him was part of the reason that they got in the van and that they stayed with the group. Did they ever try to flee or get away? No. What I was told was that they're afraid of not just Jason, but Joe. So Joe was watching them real closely, too. Joe's attitude was, well, we're all in this together, so we stay together. So Joe was watching, too. Crystal said, and it's going to be coming out in a documentary. There's a documentary being released soon, hopefully, called So Help You God, which tells the story that I'm telling you, basically. It's without all the tabloid craziness. Crystal is on record saying, I don't know. She said, I can't tell you why I didn't grab something and just bash his head while he slept or something like that. She said, I don't know. She said, the only way I can answer that is, have you ever been so scared that you just couldn't act? I mean, she witnessed a triple murder. Well, what she thought was a quadruple murder. She said, I shut down, and Karen too. I mean, that's a very typical reaction from troubled teens. They shut down. I mean, even the most fundamental stresses in life can force a shutdown, like too much homework or peer pressure, this, that, they have poor coping skills. Every one of these kids had a history of poor coping skills. So, I mean, we're not talking about homework here. We're not talking about peer pressure. We're talking murder. We're talking something, the most horrifying thing you can imagine, witnessing. You better believe they all shut down times 1,000, with the exception of Bryant, apparently. Karen just, from what I hear, didn't say a word the entire trip, barely at all. She was completely closed off. But they were afraid. I mean, there was no point in time where they could have gotten away. Gotten away where? They're driving through empty spaces of desert throughout Texas and Oklahoma and New Mexico. And where? Get away where? Run away to whom? At what point is it safe to do that? They're in a van in close proximity with a killer who's still got a gun. So, again, a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking goes on here. Everyone thinks they know what they could have done. And, if I'd have been there, I'd have just done it. You don't know unless you're in that situation. It was scary. My guess is, and again, I'm just speculating, if they finally made it to Mexico and managed to kind of go off on their own, I have no doubt that Karen and Crystal and Dean would have called their parents and found a way to get back home. They were not a group who wanted to stay together at that point. They wanted to get the hell away from each other, but they were afraid to do it. So they went to the border, and as you know, they got turned back around. They got caught. By the way, I also want to mention this. The DA, I'm sure you've heard, selling the whole natural-born killers theory. Right.
Yeah, that just doesn't hold water. I mean, if a natural-born killer's killing spree was the plan, there would be bodies from Pikeville, Kentucky, all the way down to the Mexican border. They had the guns, they had the ammo. If that was the plan, why weren't there more bodies? roadside diners and empty gas stations all over the place. He could have easily killed more people. So that just does not hold water at all. So that's a myth. Yeah.
So my next question is about their attorney, Eric Kahn.
Mm-hmm.
We could do a whole podcast on this gentleman in particular. I don't know if you're familiar with his most recent issues.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
In our conversations back and forth, you mentioned that he may have made all this up, the Satanism stuff, as a way to get an insanity plea out of these guys.
Yeah. Oh, that was well known. It was Natasha. He was Natasha's attorney. He wasn't the attorney for the others.
Okay.
But what he did had obviously a devastating trickle-down effect to the others. No, he didn't make it up. He just exacerbated and exaggerated something that was already kind of there, which was, okay, they're into the occult. Well, okay, occult, Satanism. I mean, to them, it's all the same down there in Appalachia and in, Tennessee and places in the South. It's all the same to them. Wicca, you say Wicca, you might as well be a Satanist as far as they're concerned. So, no, he just turned up the volume on that. He coached Natasha to say, you're the daughter of Satan. He was trying to get an insanity plea. It got so bad that the judge had him removed. For just that kind of unethical behavior, he had him removed. Got her a whole new attorney. I think it was Stacey Street. He completely, I mean, you can see the interviews. They're on YouTube and stuff like that. He's just selling that angle, like, shamelessly. And like I said, it had a devastating trickle-down effect. Satanic panic is a very, very effective method down there to get your conviction. And defense attorneys use it. The prosecution in this case was using it to get an insanity plea, but the defense attorneys there, the defense attorney was using it in order to get an insanity plea. The prosecutors use it the same way that prosecutors in the big cities and urban areas use the race card. If you cry that this is a racist thing, automatically you got 80% of the population on your side because nobody wants to be on the wrong end of that argument, right? Well, satanic panic is similar in the more rural areas of the United States. Use that. Oh, these are satanic murders. This was ritualistic, this, that, and the other. Ooh, the public gets in an outcry. I mean, I'm sure you saw the pictures of the nooses and everything. I mean, it was guilty until proven innocent in Tennessee, in Knoxville. Just not very, nobody was doing much thinking. Everybody was just reacting instead of getting their facts straight. And it's still happening now, 20 years later. Same nonsense being spread. Yeah,
I don't know if you remember in the podcast last week, but I'm from the Knoxville area, and I definitely remember just the outcry on the news and the media, and I remember seeing the gallows on TV, and I completely agree with you. It was pretty much guilty until proven innocent.
Yeah, and they tried to get a change of venue based on that prejudice, and the judge said no. And he said no to separate trials. I mean, you're already telling them that you're basically telling the local populace that, you murdered together, you're getting tried together. I mean, that's just hanging judge stuff. Wouldn't do a change of venue, wouldn't do separate trials. He said, it would cost too much money. So, I guess only the rich are entitled to due process. I mean, it was ridiculous from start to finish, I think. I mean, I've never seen or heard anything like it before, playing on the fears of the public.
You're also under the impression that the defense attorneys also didn't do them any favors. We talked some about the plea bargain in our conversations off the air. Talk a little bit about how that came about and how that has impacted where they are now and how they view it looking back.
The DA, Berkeley Bell, has gone on record. There's a video of it out there. I forget which one of the documentaries it's in. I think 6. He said for the record, the only one I could prove was a shooter was Jason. He just had the primary gunshot residue all over him. I mean, he was obviously a shooter. But that's not what he wanted. He said, I felt that would be doing society a disservice. I wanted to corral all of them, basically just go for the big win, the, royal flush, so to speak. So they hatched this plea bargain thing where all 6, they would take the death penalty off the table. Now, the only ones that were eligible were 4 of them, the 4 adults. Jason and Karen Howell were minors. They were not susceptible to the death penalty. But all 6 of them had to sign, or else they wouldn't take the death penalty off the table. So basically, Joe Reisner's attorney told him straight out, he says, are you really going to let little Crystal Sturgill fry for this? Put pressure on little, Karen Howell. She didn't know what the hell was going on. She's just being told that they're going to kill her friends if she doesn't sign this thing. So basically it was signing under duress, which is as immoral, unethical, and hopefully illegal as anything I've ever heard in legal history. I mean, you can't do that. You can't put a gun to someone's head and say, or just their friend's head and say, sign this or we're going to kill him, which is essentially what they did.
Right.
So that's how they got their conviction. I mean, Karen had an attorney. I mean, this guy had never tried a murder case. She was assigned an attorney who never tried a murder case, a young fellow, never been in a murder case, let alone representing a minor in one, let alone a high-pressure, high-profile one, a very emotionally charged one. I mean, it was like sending a high school football team out to play an NFL team. They just got destroyed. They got annihilated up there by the prosecution. He had no business representing her. That was totally ineffective assistance of counsel. But, it's kind of from what I've heard, the local, what people have told me, there's a sort of a boys club there. The judges, the DA, the attorneys, the prosecutor, they all play golf and drink together. So this plea bargain was just something they all hatched together, and they signed under duress, because they didn't want to see the ones that they knew were innocent being killed. And now it's, it was pleading guilty to first-degree murder, and now they all regret it. They thought the judge would go lenient on them, but the judge didn't. It was just really bad counsel.
So we covered last week the appeals process, and it looks like they've pretty much exhausted that process as of January when Karen's request was denied. Where does that leave this group going forward? What does Karen hope to do, and is there anything that can be done at this point?
Getting things at the federal level, getting it out of Tennessee. I mean, I'm no expert on appeals and things like that. I mean, the legal speak just gets dizzying to me after a while, as it does to most of the average citizens. It's a matter of getting it out of Tennessee, because Tennessee is just in the Stone Ages with their they just won't admit that they were wrong. They won't admit that this plea bargain was completely unethical. It was just wrong, and you can't do this. But they're sticking by it, and it's a matter of just getting it out of Tennessee and getting it to the Supreme Court, which is what I imagine her attorney is going to do next. I'm not in contact with him, so I can't say for sure, but that seems to be the next move.
We've talked about groups like the Innocence Project and different things like that on this podcast before. I mean, is there any way that folks like that would be willing to help out with Karen's case?
Yeah, well, they're interested. The Innocence Project actually did. They assigned her an attorney in the early 2000s, Gary Anderson, who was just excellent. If you can look it up online, his whole case for ineffective assistance of counsel was just, I mean, that's why I can't believe that how stubborn Tennessee is, the legal system. His case for ineffective assistance of counsel against David Leonard, who was Karen's attorney, was rock solid. I mean, I've read it, I heard it, I heard his arguments. I mean, how anybody could rule against what he was saying is bewildering. It's all a matter of just, you can't play the dealer's game. You got to play by the dealer's rules. You're not going to win. Dealer's going to win, and they're going to win every time. He had a rock solid case, and they shot it down. Nope, he was an effective attorney. This rookie who had never tried a murder case before it was okay with them that he represent this minor in a high profile case. He was just so inept. It was laughable. That would never happen in a big city. They would never allow that guy to represent a minor.
Did you say he was a
Karen
public
Howell.
defender?
Yeah, assigned to Karen.
Right.
He was assigned to Karen, this guy.
Yeah, based on other cases that we've covered, I feel like ineffective counsel would be almost a low-hanging fruit for getting her and maybe some of the others some reconsideration there. But you also sent us an article yesterday about a bill being put forth in Tennessee that would allow minors that have been sentenced to life to have a parole hearing after 30 years. How do Karen and others feel about that? Is that something that's encouraging? I also know that there are other lawmakers fighting against that. So can you talk a little bit more about what that might mean for them?
Yeah, I mean, it's new for me, too. I mean, that was a surprising article. I was just, whoa, where'd this come from? I don't really know much about it. Yeah, it gives hope. The problem is it also gives Jason Bryant hope, and personally, I don't want to see him out of prison. He murdered that family. Yeah, it gives Karen hope, but there you go. That'd be another 9 years in prison. she's already been in for 20, almost 21. She shouldn't have been. So, yeah, it gives her hope. She and I have talked about it. We talked over the phone about it, and it gives her hope. She just she says, what do they want from me? I mean, I was scared. I froze up. I didn't want anybody dead. What was I supposed to do? Become Wyatt Earp? I mean, those are my words, not hers. Everyone says what she should have done because she didn't. She deserves life without parole. But that's not, I don't know. So anyway, getting back to your question, we'll see. It gives some hope, but really, we're hoping she gets out before then. And Crystal and Dean, they shouldn't be. They had no history of any sort of violence or antisocial behavior or criminal behavior. To say that they suddenly murdered this family for fun and kicks and did satanic stuff over the bodies and took trophies is a broad jump of Olympian proportions to the point of it reads like a bad B horror movie.
We talk often on this podcast about how to handle situations like this where minors are involved, and it's just always so hard. Like you mentioned, people trying to say, well, they should have done this or that, and how far their minds develop. There are just so many elements to looking at it here. But what I think could be important with the bill from Tennessee is just getting that parole hearing. And you would hope if they at least get to that hearing, then at that point, Karen could show her record while in prison. She could bring up the ineffective counsel. She would have the opportunity to bring forth that evidence. Whereas Jason Bryant, if he is in fact the person that actually committed the murders and the type of person who would be a threat to society, I would hope that would come in at a parole hearing. But I agree with you. That's still kind of a tough two sides of the sword type deal.
Well, his story is the only one that changed. It's the only one that's kept changing over the years, depending on who he was telling it to. I mean, he has told so many different versions of it. I mean, do you know he admitted to killing Vidar Lillelid? He admitted to killing Vidar Lillelid to the security officer down in Arizona, but her testimony was not allowed because he hadn't been read his Miranda rights. But he admitted to killing him. I mean, he admitted to two different people that Kevin killed Vidar, and then changes his story.
Yeah, we read that that confession was not allowed to be used, and then we read his other statements, and it's tough to tell what is allowable. And I think, as you mentioned, that's kind of up to individual judges, which further complicates the matter.
Yeah, well, especially, I mean, even the court agreed that the others' stories were consistent with minor discrepancies, to use their term, which is very human. I mean, if they were spot on the same, then I would be suspicious of them. When people tell the exact same story down to the minor brass tacks details, that's when I get suspicious because it sounds rehearsed. But these guys have minor discrepancies. They were obviously telling the truth to me, from what I could see. Yeah, I mean, Jason's just kept changing. He told his sister that Karen and Natasha did satanic things over the bodies, and it's like there's no evidence of that. That's another thing that the DA made up, is that the bodies were in the shape of an upside down cross. Well, Sheriff Davenport, who was actually there on the scene and said, baloney. That's not true. They didn't appear to be tampered with at all, and it didn't appear that there was any ritual done. It appeared that whoever did this got the hell out of there as fast as they could. But here, all these years later, the DA is still saying, "Oh no, they did this ritualistic killing and they laid the body." There was no Lillelid DNA on any of them, none, no blood. They didn't take any showers or anything. Nothing. There's nothing to support this upside down cross theory of his.
And I know there are a lot of those types of things out in the media and out in the public. Are there any other myths? I think we've already covered several, but any others that you would like to share the other side of the information on?
Oh, boy. Oh, man. Yeah, there's just so many. Well, it's funny. The guy just had a humorous little aside here. You guys mentioned in the movie 6, Madonna Wallen mentioned that Karen had said to her the end of time is coming.
Right.
Yeah. Karen, of course, has never seen 6. She's not able to, but I asked her about that, and I told her, and she just belly laughed. She laughed so hard. She said, yeah, it sounds like something I would say to her. She said Madonna was a Fruit Loop. She said she was nuts. She's complaining one time there wasn't enough toilet paper. You're bringing too many people into this house, Natasha, about it. She was just always ranting and raving and screaming and going nuts. So Karen saying something like that to Tweaker was like, yeah. She says, yeah, I would probably say something like that to her. She thought it was hilarious. She thought that was so funny. But, in the movie, it's, this big evil moment. And, my God, they were out to do their apocalyptic murder spree. No, it was just her messing with Madonna Wallen, something that wasn't unusual.
Sure.
Well,
that really is all the questions that we were able to come up with after reading over your page and some documents that you sent us. Were there any things we didn't get to that you would like to share with our audience?
The ear witness, Mark Gaby, never said he heard laughing. That's another thing the DA twisted to his advantage. That's not what he said. And So Help You God, the documentary that's coming up, he clarifies that. I thought I heard children on a playground. He says, I didn't think it was laughing that I heard. He said, but, it's funny because I went by a playground after hearing that to listen to what, I read that to see what I could hear. And I heard a wide range of sounds. I heard yells, I heard shouts, squeals, screams, whines, laughs, warbles. So he heard the sounds of young people busily engaged in an activity, whatever it was, getting the hell out of there, who knows? But he never said he heard laughing. Again, the DA twisting it to his advantage. That's amazing. He said that during the party at the Collie Hotel, the girls tied the boys up and had sex with them. Again, there's nothing that supports this. Where he got that is anybody's guess. Karen just, she laughed at that too. Really? She said, I had sex with Jason Bryant, and the only person I had sex with was Joe Reisner. It wasn't that night. So there was no orgy there. There was no seance there. Nothing. It was just a night of partying in Appalachia, like I said. He said the Collie Motel had a special significance to them, and that's why it was chosen. Now, it was chosen because the Daniel Boone they couldn't get into. That was their first choice, was the Daniel Boone. But Natasha's key didn't work or something like that. She had a key to one of the rooms of the Daniel Boone Motel. So the Collie was just sort of a default place. Okay, well, we got to go there. But he made it sound like that room, somebody had killed themselves in it, and that's why it had special significance. No, they just went because they couldn't get in the Daniel Boone. But it's just things like this that just need to be called out. They need to be called out on all these lies and distortions of the truth. And they're provable lies. They're provable lies. There was no 666 burnt into the carpet. That's not true. There's just so much. There's so much. I'll probably think about it as soon as we hang up the telephone. But yeah.
When I was researching this case, I came across the two different theories. The one theory from the DA about the Satanistic rituals and all that stuff that we've already talked about, but the detective seemed to think that it was not that at all, that it was just two guys on adrenaline trying to impress girls and just did all this without the others involved, really. So if that's the theory that we're going to go with, then it seems that Karen and others are sitting in jail for something that they probably shouldn't be. So going off that, I guess I just wonder how Karen's doing. It sounds like you talk to her regularly, at least.
Not so well. Can I just answer to that real quick? About the guys impressing the girls. Yeah. Jason Bryant had a thing for Natasha. That's for sure. That's a matter of record. He's admitted to that. He was crazy about her. Him shooting to try and impress her. Yeah. Natasha was already going out with Dean. Dean didn't need to impress her. They were already an item. Joe and Karen, they were already an item. There was nothing to impress. They were locked in. They were, they were an item. There was no reason to impress Karen and Natasha. They had the only person who had anybody to impress was Jason Bryant. He was the newcomer. He was going to impress Natasha. He threatened to kill Dean. He said, "Why don't I just kill your geeky boyfriend?" According to Natasha and Karen. So, and okay, this is important too. They said they all pointed the finger at Jason Bryant to save each other because he was a newbie.
It's also said that they did that because if he was the one that went down, he couldn't be put to death in the state of Tennessee, right?
Right, but Karen couldn't either. But if that's the case, then why did Karen and Crystal specifically Karen, why did Karen say that Joe Reisner ran over the bodies on purpose? She just guaranteed him a life sentence right there. She threw him under the bus. Yeah, you did it on purpose. Her boyfriend. Those aren't the words of somebody who's trying to save somebody and point the finger at somebody else. Why not just say Bryant did the whole thing? He kidnapped them. He drove the van. He shot them. He ran over the bodies. Why not just put it all on Jason? No. She said my boyfriend basically ran over the bodies on purpose. She just guaranteed him a life sentence or worse. So, again, that theory goes downhill real quick, too, when you think about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. That's not trying to save anybody. And Crystal said the same thing. Yeah, he ran over him on purpose. Joe denies it, but they don't. And getting back to your question about Karen, she's having a rough time. You know, I mean, she's been in for 20 years. That's hard. And her father just passed away in early February. So 20 years without seeing her dad. And now, you know, he died. So, and that's the day she found out, the day that he passed away, she found out that her appeal was shot down. So boom, boom. So it's really rough on her. It's depressing. It's very depressing. But, you know, we try and keep her spirits up and give her hope that the truth will come out there. And that's why I appreciate you guys so much in your podcast, allowing me to come on here and speak the other side of the coin.
What can others do to get involved or support what you're doing through your Facebook group or any other efforts that may be able to support Karen, Dean, and Crystal?
Oh, write to the governor of Tennessee, write to the courts. Just keep those cards and letters coming in. Keep supporting Justice for Karen Howell and Crystal Sturgill. Phone calls to the governor's office. It's so hard because they signed that plea bargain. That's the thing that's screwing them right now. They signed something that said, "I'm guilty of first-degree murder." I mean, they really shot themselves in the foot. So it's a matter of getting that thing overturned, I think, first. Right now, what we're hoping for is like with the West Memphis 3, how those documentaries really saved them. Mm-hmm. The 3 documentaries, well, we're hoping So Help You God has a similar effect for Karen, Crystal, and Dean, that it makes people look at the truth. Suddenly a big, we get celebrity support and we get outside support and get people to put pressure on the Tennessee government like they did to Arkansas for the West Memphis 3 and get them to release them. And one thing I want to make clear, I'm not a liberal. I am not some California granola munching, patchouli sniffing type. I'm actually quite conservative in a lot of my views, and I'm all for punishment. I'm all for prison. I keep a shotgun by my door, and I'm not afraid to use it if I have to. You know, if someone breaks into my house, I'm not some bleeding heart liberal. I'm not. If I thought, and I've told Karen this and Crystal, if I thought you guys did this, I would want you to stay there. I would not be supporting you. We wouldn't be friends. You know, I can't befriend murderers. And I've told them that. So I've been accused of being a bleeding heart liberal. That's why I just decided to throw that in. That's just absolute. My friends would be cracking up if they heard you say that I was a bleeding heart liberal. It's like, him? No. My grandfather ran Nixon's campaign. That's the strain of republicanism that runs in my family, and Reagan's campaign for governor.
So Jamie and I always talk about justice, and we wanted justice for the Lid family. And quite honestly, I mean, if the version of events that you've described are true and that's what really happened, then it would seem to me that Karen and others are not getting justice in this case. That there should be some punishment at some level, but to spend the rest of her life in prison is not justice. So I hope that, you know, through this documentary, through these podcasts, through everything that you're doing on your end, I hope that the truth is revealed and that justice can be done in this case, especially for Karen. And, you know, like Jamie said, we've covered other cases about juveniles and getting a fair shake on things. So I hope this all works out for Karen and the others that may not have been involved to the extent as the other guys in this case.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, it's kind of like, in order for that to happen, I have to quote Jason Baldwin here of the West Memphis 3, which is basically, he just said, look, emotion clouds judgment. He said, take away the emotions, separate yourself from your emotions, and just look at the facts. What adds up and what doesn't. And then base it on that. Weigh what I said against what Berkeley Bell said. Natural-born killer's killing spree. Okay, well, where's the body count? There should be bodies from Pikeville all the way down to the Mexican border. That doesn't hold water. The bodies were arranged in the shape of a cross. Well, Sheriff Davenport says no, he was there. So do we believe him or do we believe a DA with a satanic kids agenda to sell? I'm taking the guy who was actually there rather than the guy who's trying to sell me something. So you weigh both sides and then come up with your own conclusion. And that's all I'm asking of people. take away your emotions, look at this logically as possible, and make an assessment from there. That's all.
That's exactly what we were trying to provide our listeners with. They heard the series of events that we shared last week, which was largely along the lines of the prosecution, and we were thrilled that you came on to share a different point of view, and now they are going to be left to make their minds up as well. Douglas, we really appreciate your time and coming on, and we hope to touch base again at some point and see how things are progressing with the case.
Thank you, and I appreciate your open minds and listening to me and giving me a forum to at least, speak a little justice. I really appreciate your open minds. I appreciate your show. I think it's great.